Hi everyone. I think we can kick things off. So welcome to one of the pre-forum events here for the Asia Clean Energy Forum. We're delighted to be kicking things off. For this particular session, we're going to be looking at the role of de-risking clean energy demonstration projects through inclusive safeguards, gender equality, community engagement, and social inclusion. So we really look at how can you crowd in the private finance to these projects at the demonstration phase from the very beginning, making sure that these projects are inclusive and really build in both the social and environmental safeguards into that. So I'm Peter Warren from the UN's Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, which is the UN's agency that leads on sustainable and inclusive industrial development. And I'm happy to be here. I like coming to ASEF. I think this might be my 6th or 7th time coming here. I think it's a fantastic event and really brings together the community of Asia Pacific from countries all across the region really well. And I think it does a fantastic job, and all thanks to the Asian Development Bank for hosting this conference every year. So what I'll be talking about just really quickly before I'll hand over to my speakers, who will do most of the speaking in this session, is just to sort of give a little bit of background to a little bit on UNIDO, but also a new program called the Accelerate to Demonstrate Facility, which is an opportunity as well for the private sector to get funding to do demonstration projects. So this isn't just about the importance of the topic, but also we have an opportunity where we can really put this into practice. So today, maybe on the next slide, I'll just go over the agenda quickly. So we're going to hear at the start from a few distinguished speakers. So first, it'll be Teddy Monroe, who's the UNIDO's country representative for Philippines. So he'll provide a bit of an overview of the work that we're doing in the Philippines on clean energy projects. Then we're going to hear from the UK government, who is the donor to the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility on the work that they're doing on inclusion, social inclusion, environmental and social safeguards within programs and the suite of international climate finance programs that the UK government funds in this space. Then we're going to move on to a couple of presentations where you'll hear a bit more about the practical side of what we're doing here with through the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility as a case study of a facility that is doing this in practice, and a case study of a project in Nepal. So that we're not just focusing on that higher level, but actually what's really happening on the ground. So we've got a specific project case study that we'll show you, and we've got a video as well to put that into practice. So Ms. Moon Pradhan, who's from Practical Action, one of the first supported projects under this facility. We'll then move to a panel discussion where you'll hear from our speakers, and we'll introduce the speakers a bit later. But you'll hear both from the Asian Development Bank's experiences with safeguards. You hear from UNIDO's experiences, UNSCAP's experiences, and also from our project, the Nepalese project as well, so that you can hear from a range of different multilaterals as well as on the ground. Lots of chance to ask questions, so please do. If you've got a question during the panel discussion, we have a mic that is just in the middle of the room, so please just go stand next to it and then we'll bring you in. I know you can also do it through the app, but we're quite keen to get you up and talking, so if you can, it'd be great to go to the mic. The only other thing I'll say as well is that we've got at the back, you may have seen, there's some leaflets and some reports that you might find interesting. We'll talk a bit about those later, but we have an annual report that's just been published, as well as a number of facility market assessments that have looked at the landscape of innovators, of technologies in key areas like clean hydrogen, critical minerals, the digitalization agenda, and industrial decarbonisation, which are 4 areas that we particularly will discuss as part of looking at safeguards issues today. So without further ado, I'm going to invite our first speaker, Mr. Teddy Monroe from the Philippines country office here in UNIDO. Teddy, thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is good to see you all here this afternoon. I am very pleased to have been given this opportunity to address you all. As I am certain that everyone here is already aware, the global green energy transition is accelerating at a rapid pace, with reports indicating record investments, technology adoption, and renewable energy capacity growth in recent years. However, to maintain this track, countries need to increase policy ambition, intensify efforts towards scaling up, facilitate green financing, and promote international cooperation. Despite the progress, carbon emission reductions by 2030 will require stronger commitments. Investment levels, though record-breaking, are only less than 40% of what is needed annually to meet net zero goals by 2050. And the pace of growth in emerging clean technologies like hydrogen and carbon capture remains slow and needing more private-public partnerships. In fact, according to the International Energy Agency, about 35% of the emission reductions needed to achieve a global net zero scenario by 2050 will be made possible by technologies that are still in the demonstration phase. This therefore makes it imperative that demonstration projects aiming to accelerate the commercialization of innovative clean energy solutions must be investment ready and are designed to integrate inclusive approaches that consider the needs of both people and the environment. In other words, for these projects to be successful, they need to prioritize environmental and social safeguards that are able to ensure actions that are socially responsible and environmentally sustainable. Equally important in managing both the risks and opportunities are the strategies that foster social inclusion, equity, and gender equality. It is my hope that through this afternoon's discussions, and the showcasing of success stories, we will be able to look more closely at the cruciality of these environmental and social safeguards and their contribution to de-risking innovative financing mechanisms that can better unlock and mobilize private sector investments, especially in the Asia-Pacific region. Meanwhile, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization continues to collaborate with governments, private sector, and other partners in accelerating the green transition. UNIDO's A to D facility, which Peter has already mentioned a while ago, funded by the UK government, is a flagship program that supports developing countries in clean energy innovation by providing targeted grant funding to pilot catalytic demonstration projects in key areas critical for the clean energy transition, such as critical minerals, clean hydrogen, smart energy, and industry decarbonization. It fills a crucial gap by focusing on the demonstration phase of climate innovation, supporting the implementation and operation of lighthouse projects that have the potential to create transformational impacts and catalyze wider adoption of clean technologies. Other UNIDO programs on supporting the green transition include the organization's Industrial Deep Decarbonization Initiative, or IDDI. This initiative is focused on accelerating the decarbonization of heavy industries, particularly steel, cement, and concrete production. It aims to stimulate early demand for low and near zero emission industrial materials through green public procurement commitments. Closely related to this is the UNIDO Net Zero Partnership for Industrial Decarbonization that assists the development of transformational pathways toward climate-neutral industries by 2050. It provides customized technical assistance, policy guidance, and NDC 3.0 support packages, and also the deployment of decarbonization technologies. Another is the UNIDO Global Program on Hydrogen in Industry that intends to promote the development and deployment of green hydrogen technologies covering the entire clean hydrogen value chain, including renewable energy generation, water provision, hydrogen production, transport and storage, and end use in industry, transport, and power generation. The Global Alliance for Responsible and Green Minerals, a multi-stakeholder initiative led by UNIDO, aims to establish international guidelines and benchmarks for sustainable and responsible supply chains of critical minerals that are essential for clean energy technologies and the green transition. In relation to this, the Global Alliance on Circular Economy and Resource Efficiency is an alliance of governments at global level, supported by stakeholders willing to work together on and advocate for a global just circular economy transition and a more sustainable management of natural resources at the political level and in multilateral fora. And then there is the UNIDO Green Industrial Policy Program that promotes green and low carbon industrial development in manufacturing sectors and SMEs, focusing on resource efficiency and environmental sustainability. I cannot end my discussion today without mentioning the Philippines. So in the Philippines, we did have completed an EU-funded project in Tawi-Tawi. We call it the Renewable Energy Project in Tawi-Tawi, where we were able to establish a 1.5 megawatt solar diesel hybrid system to support island communities that are producing seaweed. We are also currently implementing a project funded by the German government called the Transcend. And here, UNIDO is focusing on promoting energy efficiency for SMEs. And finally, we also have a project funded by the GEF, or the Global Environment Facility, that looks into the decarbonization of the cement industry in the Philippines. These and other allied efforts related to the green transition takes into account the interrelated nature of SDGs 7, 9, 12, and 13, maximizing the impacts of mutually reinforcing interventions across these goals. At this point, allow me to express my gratitude in advance to all the speakers, panel discussants, and moderators in our session this afternoon. I urge everyone to take advantage of the presentations and exchanges that can help us build onto each other's knowledge and experiences and collectively uncover more opportunities to further advance our common goals in scaling up the clean energy innovation and the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you so much, and I wish you all a productive and meaningful session ahead.
Thanks very much, Teddy. And you can see there's a whole range of different projects and programs, and the key thing is how do you build in the inclusivity as part of all of those projects from the start, not as this tick box that you do later on in the project process, but from the very beginning as part of project design. And that's why we're really keen to have this discussion. And that's why this discussion, which is about how do you leverage private finance investment, is done through the lens of the role of inclusivity as a way to bring in private capital into a part of the project lifecycle, demonstration projects, which is very underfunded. I mean, there's a plethora of climate funds out there. There's a lot of funding from different, multilaterals, also bilateral programs, but the demonstration angle and part of the chain is really underfunded. And that's what this conversation this afternoon is about. How do you leverage the finance to get a really crucial part of the chain to commercialization as quickly as possible to meet climate targets, but also economic benefits, national security benefits, energy security, etc. So now I'm delighted to introduce Sean Richmond from the UK government's Department for Energy Security Net Zero. And we have a great partnership with the UK, who are the funders to a lot of our work. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you to UNIDO for the invitation and warm welcome. My name is Sean. I'm the Programme Manager at the UK Government for the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility, known as A2D, which is delivered through UNIDO. Gender equality and social and environmental safeguards are a top priority for the UK Government. And I'm delighted to be here today to join you for this pre-forum event and provide a few short opening remarks. International collaboration and partnerships, such as the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility, are vital to keeping the world on track towards a net zero pathway. By working together to focus our actions and resources, we can innovate faster, lower costs, scale new markets, and ultimately ensure that clean technologies are readily accessible around the world. For this to be effective, I would like to emphasize 3 points. First, we need to target those areas that have the greatest potential for gains and the most pressing need for us to act. This means supporting innovation in the hardest to abate sectors that will be key to hitting our climate goals, driving down costs, and bringing technologies and solutions to markets globally. Second, we need to ramp up the amount and accessibility of international technical and financial assistance. This will help close geographic investment gaps for countries with extraordinary potential to develop new clean industries and ensure they can reap the many socio-economic benefits they offer. Third, we need to create a lighthouse effect by building investor confidence through high-quality demonstration projects. This way, we can prove the viability of the technologies and create knowledge and lessons for effective and rapid scaling and replication. And alongside these needs, we must ensure that gender, social, and environmental safeguards are not only met, but are mainstreamed as integral parts of the projects we support. It's for these reasons, that the UK government partnered with UNIDO to launch the A2D facility to accelerate the commercialization of innovative clean energy technologies in developing countries, focusing on those sectors vital to the clean energy transition, which were mentioned: critical minerals, industrial decarbonisation, smart energy, and clean hydrogen. I'm sure those four things will come up again. Finally, 2 weeks ago, at the first annual A2D event, the second call for project proposals was launched. It will be open for the next 5 weeks and seeks innovative demonstration projects that also prioritise and deliver on gender, environmental, and social safeguards to ensure the long-term sustainability and success of projects. I will now hand back to Peter, and thank you for your attention.
Great, thanks very much, Sean, and thanks again to the UK government for the partnership on Accelerate to Demonstrate facility and a number of other programs that we have on the hard to abate sectors, as you mentioned, as a priority area. So we now want to sort of give you a few examples of how we're now building this into the programs and project level so that you can see the practicality of how we do this. One additional point I wanted to add on that is I think we're, thanks to the UK for this, but we also had the ability to hire a world expert on JESI and ESS, who I'm going to hand over to now, actually built into our program, who is really going to be working with the projects. So it's really great that we can have a program that can really build that in from the design, both at the program level and the project level. And then we're encouraging the projects that submit proposals to us to ensure that they are meeting this. And we have important criteria dedicated to this topic. So we don't support projects that are not prioritizing this. And as Sean said, there's currently a call that was launched 1 week ago for projects between $1 to $5 million for demonstration projects. And we'll talk more about that call. And that's open now. So we've got all the links on the slides if you're interested to, as a project developer or as a private sector participant, to put in bids to do projects. So I want to hand over to Lorena Alberto, who's from the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility team, and Giovanna Franza, also from the team. Who's coming up first? Giovanna? Okay, over to Giovanna first.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. So I am Giovanna from the UNIDO, and I'm going to have the pleasure to explain to you a little bit first on this part on the risking demonstration projects from the perspective of the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility, and I'll give you some more details on it. So first, we have been talking a little bit about demonstration projects, and my colleagues have talked about before what is the importance of implementing demonstration projects. As Peter was saying, there's this gap in funding in the part of taking projects that were made before, for example, with feasibility studies, and then getting them to the commercialization aspect. So those that are there on the innovation front, but need this investment towards being able to be implemented afterwards. So in this scope, we're talking about those demonstration projects that are essential for accelerating clean energy innovation. So for example, that is increasingly recognized as a vital form and really needed to achieve the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And talking about this gap that we were saying, the IEA highlights this almost 35% of emissions reductions necessary for achieving the global net zero scenario by in 2050, they will come from these technologies that are still on the demonstration or prototype phase. So you can also see a little bit more here on the screen in terms of the relative increase in carbon dioxide emissions savings in 2050, a little bit on thinking of the figure that I'm talking to you about. And as we were saying, so the work of the A2D is coming to address this gap. So to contribute to filling up this important gap, supporting developing countries, targeting the demonstration phase, right? So I'm going to tell you a little bit more on what is the A2D and what is UNIDO first. Since the A2D facility is within the UNIDO and together with the support of the UK government, UNIDO is the UN agency for the promotion of inclusive and sustainable industrial development in developing countries. So we're there at the forefront to make sure that SDG 9 goes ahead. For example, in 3 ways: supporting the sustainable supply chains so that developing countries producer get a fair deal and scarce resources are preserved. Second, limiting climate breakdown by using renewable energy and energy efficiency to reduce industrial greenhouse gas emissions. And 3, ending hunger by cutting post-harvest losses and developing agribusiness value chains. You can see a little bit on the UNIDO expertise there, for example, technical assistance, capacity building, investing in innovation funding, partnerships, collaboration, or policy dialogues, as we're doing now. And talking a little bit about the A2D facility, first, we have been we started operating in 2023, the initial contribution of 80 million from the UK government. And what the A2D facility does is that it provides grants for developing countries in order to support these demonstration projects. So grants, for example, from 1 to 5 million per project. And we're looking into the 4 thematic areas that my colleagues also mentioned. You can see also in the banner that is next to me on clean hydrogen, critical minerals, smart energy, industrial decarbonization. And the work that is being done, so for example, through call for proposals, the first call of proposal, we had it in 2024, and now we're having 5 projects that are now starting on the implementation phase, which we're going to talk a little bit more afterwards. So you have also this practical aspect on what is that the A2D facility is doing at the moment. And now we have also the open call for proposals that was, as my colleague Sean said, we announced it in our annual event in Nairobi recently. Now moving a little bit further on what is that the A2D facility is doing is mostly supporting these catalytic projects to transform sectors. So what we're looking for is what we call a lighthouse effect. So thinking of the scalability, additionality of the project, how it can be transferred from one place, one situation to the other, unlocking further solutions. And I think this is something that will be said more afterwards by my colleague Lorena when she explains some projects. But a good example on this lighthouse scalability effect would be one of those projects that we're doing or implementing on the industrial decarbonization aspect theme within Kenya, for example, on greening the industrial chain of tea, and then we're thinking, for example, on how this could be scalable not only for that project specifically, but also decarbonizing the green tea industry within Kenya, for example, thinking on this scalability and lighthouse and social aspect. And we also have a strong focus on sharing lessons learned, dissemination, monitoring, providing capacity building, and providing, for example, for risk management. For example, with the session that we're doing today, we're also talking about risk management through the safeguards, so on the social, environmental aspects. And here is just a little bit so that you guys can have a look on what the A2D has been doing since 2023. So we have already 2 years full with milestones. I hope you can read from where you are, but I'm going to cite some of them. So for example, we have since since COP 2027 on November 2022, we have different activities that we have been implementing. So, for example, the organization or participation organization of events, for example, on ASEF that we're here now, and we did it also last year, and the launch of market assessments on several critical areas that we mentioned. You can also have the opportunity to take this knowledge with you, since we brought leaflets, and you can find it behind you. On this critical assessments, and I'm going to talk a little bit more on them, but basically this market assessments, what they're bringing is trying to see what is the technological landscape of critical minerals, what are the main innovators, what are main recommendations to ramp up innovation on those areas. So basically the studies that we conducted are addressing these main questions, and you can also have a further look onto them, and then we brought them for you. And other key events that we had are, for example, different workshops that we did across different regions and outside, for example, in Mexico, Indonesia, Brazil, South Africa, and recent announcement of the call of proposals that just happened the previous month. What you guys would also be, if you're interested in to read more, you can also have our annual event report. It's also there. You can also get a copy or scan the QR code if you want, yeah, to save some paper as well. So it's you can see more of this of the main milestones, and you can see more on the projects that we're implementing at the moment in further detail as well. See some more scanning up, so I'm gonna give you some time. And here, just exactly a comment on the market assessments. So basically, since we have the different thematic areas, we were trying to see and answer these key questions on what is the technological landscape, what is the innovation landscape, what are the main hubs, what could be recommendations to ramp up technologies on globally. So basically, we looked globally on Asia as we're here, and also we looked into Latin America, Africa, different regions, and then we have published these materials looking into these very practical questions on to see what are the main stakeholders, what are the main innovators, what are the means that you can unlock these thematic areas. Yeah.
So I'm being really unconventional and just coming in.
Yeah,
Sorry.
please.
Sorry,
Be welcome.
That's really bad. Just because I really think these are a fantastic piece of work, right? They're really practical. I mean, there's a whole like annex which says what are the actual existing projects out there right now in developing countries? What were the financing mechanisms that allowed those demonstration projects? Equity, debt, who, by which? I mean, I think these are brilliant. To be honest, I shouldn't really say that, but you see a lot of reports out there. They're quite high level, to be honest, often developed country focused. But these started at the level of 141 OD eligible countries, and then they went down to the level of let's deep dive into 15 to 20 in each region. So if there's a particular country in Asia Pacific that you've got more interest in or you work in, there's likely a deep dive on that. So sorry to cover that, just because it's very. I think these are definitely take a look. They're very useful for designing as well new projects that you might then put in as proposals to the call.
Yeah.
Many apologies, Giovanna.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
but I think I appreciate it. I think this is also very useful as well, like, to trying to see, like, so when we're seeing this landscape, to see what are the technologies at the moment, how to propose what is there, and also what are the homegrown technologies in those areas, to know what is innovation, how is innovation looking like in different countries, and what are the main hubs and countries in which that is happening. So great addition. And then now I would like to pass to pass the floor to my colleague Lorena Alberti from Jesse and SS to present a little bit more on what are these demonstrations projects that we were talking about. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here and attending. I'm very happy and thrilled that my main topic, my bread and butter, is here in a multilateral fora, so thank you so much. So I'm Lorena Alberte, I'm the GESI and ESS lead for the A2D facility, so many acronyms, but gender equality, social inclusion, other people say JETSI because we had to include the D of diversity as well into the topic, and I also cover environmental and social safeguards. We will have a deep dive and a discussion with an amazing lineup of panelists on GESI and ESS, but now I'm going to introduce the first supported A2D facility projects. So as Sean Richmond from UK government mentioned, the A2D facility, we launched our first call for proposal last year, July 2024, and from those proposals received, we selected 5 supported A2D facility projects. So in our 4 thematic areas, we selected the first project is an industrial decarbonization project. So it's a biomass gasification plant power that power a Kenyan tea factory. So we call this the green tea or greener tea. Using local agricultural waste and biomass, and the outcomes of the GESI and ESS outcomes in this project are very nice because they are also engaging with the communities and with the women in the tea factories. Then on the next project, the Clean Hydrogen Project in Namibia, we are supporting this facility. They produce green hydrogen. From green hydrogen, they produce green sulfate, and from green sulfate, they produce fertilizers. So, of course, also is a broader impact that they are promoting food security as well in Namibia, because of the wars going on now, they are having a problem with the fertilizer trade. And then moving on to the next project, we are supporting a critical mineral project. This is in Tanzania. So the project is a local manufacturing of lithium-ion batteries for these electric motorcycles, and also they are doing all the installation and the infrastructure locally. And then moving on to the next projects, the last 2 ones, we are supporting 2 projects on smart energy. So the first one is based in Nepal. We're going to have a presentation by Ms. Moon Pradhan on this, so she will showcase the project and also the impact on GESI and ESS. But this is a smart solar and storage microgrid for this industrial scale deployment of a steel factory. And then the next project is in Nigeria, and we are supporting a peer-to-peer energy sharing system to convert these wasted renewables into community power. So of course, again, the community impact is very shown in all the supported projects of the A2D facility. And as Peter Warren, A2D facility manager, said, we really ask for the projects to be transformational. So we're gonna share these slides with you. I'm gonna cover the second call for proposals, but then we're gonna share these slides with you after the session. So as mentioned already, 2 weeks ago, I think, we were in Nairobi, Kenya, and we organized our first annual event. So we published our second call for proposals on the 20th of May, and it's going to close on the 7th July 2025. So as mentioned already, we're looking for implementation of catalytic and scalable demonstration projects ranging from $1 to 5 million, and then in a 3-year time scales. So there are 3 windows. We have the possibility of first, the global window from any ODA eligible country. Then we have the window of a thematic window. So those countries that are deep dived in the market assessments that you can find there, as already mentioned. And then the last one is the geographic, Brazil, and then large scale demonstration projects ranging from $15 to 20 million. So please, we are going to share this with you, but you can find all the information through the UNIDO procurement portal. And then any questions related to the call for proposals, please just send emails to this person here. They are part of the UNIDO procurement team in our headquarters in Vienna. So I was saying, we have all the deep dive information of our first 5 supported projects, but I'm going to skip this in terms of time because I also want to have time for your questions and answers to the panelists. And I'm going to move forward. You will have all this information. And I'm going to cover basics, foundations of GESI and ESS into A2D facility. So as Sean was saying, A2D facility wants to make sure that we are mainstreaming GESI along the project cycle. So we ask all our supported projects to GESI mainstream because the assumption is that our supported projects are not only driving innovation and are not only promoting decarbonization efforts, but are also leading to a wide range of socioeconomic and environmental benefits. So local community, protecting ecosystems and the planet. So on the GESI side, we always say that we try to not be GESI accidental, but GESI intentional in order to, in the future, become GESI transformational. So we are looking for these transformational projects, and they cannot achieve a transformational impact as a KPI if they are not impacting the communities and the ecosystems. So the assumption is that the projects, they have to apply gender and inclusion lens at all project phases. And a very important topic that, of course, is kind of a gap and a challenge in this is how we ensure that we collect all the data, qualitative and quantitative data on the field. So we ask all our projects to collect this gender disaggregated data, and then also partner with gender and social focus organization to enhance this impact. Related to the project log frame, we ask the supported projects of the A2D facility to report to a gender output indicator focus on the OECD DAC Gender Equality Policy Marker 1. This is just the baseline. We also ask the projects to go further and to achieve this transformational change and indicate their outcomes. So, of course, in our projects, gender issues are not the main objective of the project or the program, but they have significantly reflected and integrated and mainstreamed gender equality and social inclusion in their project outcomes. And then moving forward, we're also touching upon the topic of environmental and social safeguards. So in UNIDO, we have this policy framework, that was updated last year as well. It's the environmental and social safeguards policies and procedures. Is the commitment of UNIDO to responsible project implementation. We ensure that we are complying with international frameworks and with other multilateral frameworks on ESS. And ultimately, we want to ensure that the projects contribute to inclusive and sustainable development. Here is what our UNIDO ESS PPs look like. I mean, we're going to have this discussion on the panel discussion, but as well, there's a lot of multilateral DF-wise frameworks on UNIDO. Basically, it's the same thing, but with other names. But we have a set of 12 operational safeguards, as you see in the slide. And also, the important thing is that A2D facility wants to go also a step forward and a step beyond, because we want to include that tiny what is written there. So you can also include, even though this is ESS, you can also include gender equality, prevention of gender-based violence as a safeguard. You can also include children and people with disabilities, youth groups, constituencies, and also taking care of fragile and conflict-affected situations. So basically, what's important here is that UNIDO will not, and hence the A2D facility will not support any project that harm the environment, that pollutes, or that, for example, contributes to child labor, of course. And on the ESS monitoring and reporting side, all our A2D facility supported projects, they must report to an ESS output indicator in our projects and program log frame. And of course, the baseline is the UNIDO environmental and social safeguards policies and procedures. So they have to, the minimum criteria is that they make a positive impact on environmental sustainability, social inclusion, and they include the protection of biodiversity, sustainable land, water management, climate change mitigation, and pollution reduction. Of course, we also ask our projects to go one step ahead and also utilize other frameworks, other ESS policy frameworks like GEF, GCF, ADBs, for example, World Bank, to go one step further. So you can find all the information of our A2D facility here, and I'm gonna ask Peter to introduce our next speaker to showcase GESI and ESS in real project implementation. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Lorena. And you're also going to hear as well in this session from colleagues in the Asian Development Bank and UNESCAP as well about how those two organizations also build this in at a really ambitious level as well. So you'll have a nice plethora of different diverse points as well from different organizations. So yeah, without further ado, Moon Pradhan from Practical Action. This is the Nepal project that you saw on the slide and is one of the first recipients of our grants. Over to you, Moon.
Thank you, Peter. So I'm representing the case of UNIDO's first call, and we're GRIPS 2, based in Nepal. Now, if you look at the country itself, so it is grid resilience through intelligent photovoltaic and storage phase 2. So as it is clear, it is in clean energy in photovoltaic. Our country is situated in a very unique location, which makes us very vulnerable to climate change. We're fourth most vulnerable in the world itself in climate change, facing frequent floods, landslides, and temperature shifts. We are also 11th most prone to earthquake because of the geographical situation that we're in. And we're most susceptible to flood risks, which really impacts not just the industries, but also the livelihood of people who live in the country. Now, we're very highly reliant on hydropower for our energy source. We're 99.8% reliant on hydropower for our source of energy. However, the industries face frequent power outages, around 3 to 5 hours of power outage in a day, which means that either their production has to be cut short, or whatever they were doing, if it is stopped at that time, that causes a lot of damage to the industry, which amounts to maybe some millions of rupees just by having cut short one boiler operation in the steel factory. So that means they will rely on an alternative energy that will support the continuous supply of energy. Now, the next option for the supply of energy is diesel-powered generators. And Nepal does not produce diesel or any other kind of fossil fuel, which means we have to import that from a neighboring country. And that means we're spending a lot of money in production of that kind of energy, which is we're importing around $3.7 billion worth of fuel imports throughout the country itself. So there is a dependency on energy supply from another country for being able to be productive for industries, and also overdependence on hydropower, which does have their limitations because, remember I said there is flood and there is climate, where like not climate resilient, we're very prone to climate changes, which means there will be glacial melts, or which means there will be a lot of water, and having a lot of water for hydropower can mean that you will have to stop the production for some time. And then there's the dry spells, which again means because we're the hydropower is based on rivers, so any changes to the water supply means that there has to be changes or stopping of the power. So that's the reason that there is the need for having to depend on diesel generators also. So this means that we need to have some kind of reliable source of energy which can be produced within the country itself. That is the reason that solar is most ideally placed. Our country also has a lot of sun power, that comes in, and it's really ideal for solar energy. That is why there's been a rise in solar deployment in the country. Gampar, one of the partners in this project, owns over 10 actually, right now, almost over 20 million megawatts solar across 25 industries. And what it does is reduce the dependence on the fossil fuel and also give financial savings. And in doing this also, at the same time, there's also the Jesse consideration is not there in the industries currently. So when Jesse audit was done in phase 1 of GRIPS, we found out that industries are basically Jesse blind, and or there is no technical female technicians are very less, and there is basically no one in the managerial positions who are female also. So there we saw the need for Jesse intervention in the industries also. Also, there is minimal environment considerations. So as I said, the first thing they thought of when there is no electricity is diesel, fossil fuel. And there is no circuitry plans also. So due to all of this, it was very necessary to incorporate Jesse as well as environment and social safeguarding within the project itself, which the project plans. So based on the phase 1 of GRIPS, which was implemented in housing in Kathmandu in Nepal, the phase 2 project is here, where we have the 4 megawatt hours of storage, and almost 1 megawatt power of PV. It's not actually 1 megawatt, it is less than 1 megawatt. And this is being implemented in steel factory, Lakshmi Steel Factory in Sunwal, which is towards the Tarai region of the country. What it is going to do is have a financial saving of $1.3 million, also carbon curbing of 2,800 tons because of the displacement of the diesel generator, and the solar itself being 1 megawatt or worth 350,000 euros. What we are planning to do is displace generator at least displace 1,000 kiloliters diesel displacement. When we're talking about Jesse now, Practical Action, which is the main lead in this project, is committed to equality. And in all of our projects in the past, we have been able to implement in the community Jesse integration very well. And we are going to incorporate that in this project also. Of course, we are going to be complying with UNIDO's inclusion expectations as outlined by Lorena earlier. And what we are going to get is better outcomes through participation, addressing industrial need equity, and lighthouse lighthouse project. As I said earlier, the industry is Jesse blind, no Jesse or ESS guidelines, no female staff at the factory. Currently, a factory is providing employment, but most jobs are linked to traditional practices, limiting modern skill development also. Now, we plan to have inclusive job opportunities, aim at transforming Lakshmi Steel to be gender sensitive, from gender blind to gender sensitive through different activities, and proactively ensure equitable access to new skills and opportunities. How we will get there is by ensuring there is a steering committee which will include Lakshmi Steel also. This will be established in the area where Lakshmi Steel is there. Also make Jesse policy framework. And we will have capacity building at Lakshmi Steel, where we will ensure that 50% participation is from our women, and develop GRIPS 2 project Jesse action plan. So the technical training will have 50% of women participants as well as trainers, and Jesse sensitive dissemination, as in all that the knowledge products will also be promoting the 50% participation. What we will be achieving is that we will have a Jesse steering committee in the community. The Jesse action plan will be developed for the project and the industry. Jesse framework will also be adopted by the Lakshmi Steel industry. At least 50% of the women will be getting capacity development, and Jesse awareness will also be enhanced. Workplace condition will also be improved, and we will ensure that there is data-driven accountability. So basically, we're aiming at Jesse action plan, ESS action plan, and a steering committee that will ensure diverse stakeholder actions. So we will have a Jesse demonstration project, which will be a business case that we can showcase in the future also. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Moon. And I think there's a video of the project that we can show as the tech works.
Yes.
We'll take questions after the video, but just the one question, because the panel is, we really want to get to the panel. So maybe, is it possible to hold the question till the panel? Or is it really essential? Because if you really want it, then you can ask. Just want to keep it to time, because this timer is flashing red aggressively at us. So if we could show the video, that would be great. Thank you.
Imagine a future where Nepal's industries power themselves with clean, reliable energy instead of polluting diesel generators. This isn't just a vision, it's happening now. Welcome to Grid Resilience through Intelligent Photovoltaic and Storage Phase 2, Nepal's industrial energy revolution. Building on the success of GRIPS 1, Practical Action, Calm Power, and Swan Barton, with support from UNIDO's Accelerate to Demonstrate facility, is taking clean energy innovation to scale.
Welcome to Lakshmi Steel Limited. This is one of the largest steel factories in Nepal, and in this project, we'll be demonstrating industrial-level decarbonization of diesel through the installation of a 1 megawatt solar, along with a 2 megawatt, 4 megawatt hour battery bank. This installation will lead to 1,000 kiloliters of diesel displacement, along with 2,800 tons of CO2 displacement over the tenure of the project. This project can demonstrate how industries in Nepal can increase the reliability of their power and also decrease their energy costs by choosing renewable energy and by displacing diesel generator in their operations.
At Swan Barton, we specialise in smart energy systems. And through GRIPS 2, we're revolutionising industrial energy in Nepal. Our AI-driven technology is changing how Lakshmi Steel stores and uses their energy. Traditional backup systems waste energy and drive up costs. Swan Barton's machine learning algorithms forecast generation and demand and balance loads in real time, minimising inefficiencies without diesel reliance. That means fewer emissions, lower costs, and smarter energy consumption. It's more than just storage. It's a blueprint for energy resilience and industrial decarbonisation across Nepal and beyond.
GRIPS 2 isn't just about technology, it's about people and planet.
Our gender equality and social inclusion approach ensures that everybody benefits from this transition to clean energy. We will be ensuring participation of women and marginalized communities in the capacity building in the solar sector so that there is more pathway for women and benefit of marginalized communities from this transition to the cleaner energy.
We are integrating environmental and social safeguard in this decarbonization process in both planning and implementation phase through benefit augmentation as well as minimizing the adverse potential in environmental and social impact so that people, environment and business can thrive together.
Practical Action is an international development organization which exists to change the systems that keep people in poverty and vulnerable to impacts of climate change, nature loss and pollution. We work alongside communities to build resilient livelihoods and thriving inclusive societies. Beyond technology, GRIPS 2 is inclusive, integrating gender equality and social inclusion and environmental and social safeguards to ensure a just transition to clean energy. This transformation wouldn't be possible without the A2D facility by UNIDO, enabling scalable, innovative climate actions. Together, practical action with its partners, Campower Nepal, Swanbarton UK, are proving that clean energy is not just feasible, it's bringing innovation that will transform the whole industrial sector, not only in Nepal, but also in South and Southeast Asia.
So I think we'll take this one question that we want to say. If you could introduce yourself as well and your organization, that would be great. And then we'll move to the panel.
Hello, United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, Anna Pivovarska, Sustainable Energy Division. I have a question whether you have addressed the circularity issue or whether you are going to address it later.
It's a project that started in 1st of February. So we're currently in the planning phase. However, in GRIPS 1, the first phase, we did do assessment for just the audit, but for the environment and social safeguarding, we will be doing inclusive assessment with the involvement of the community also, which is in the plan that have been given. We've done a preliminary site visit and discussion with the owners of the industry as an initiation. Yeah.
Great, thanks very much for the question. So we're going to move to our panel now. So I'll invite Lorena back up to the stage, who's going to lead and moderate the panel, and we'll introduce our distinguished speakers. Thank you, Lorena.
I think I can talk first here. Thank you, Peter, and thank you all our keynote speakers, and also Moon showcasing project implementation for setting the stage so well. So I'm excited to guide this panel discussion today. I also want to thank the ADB for giving us the space to talk about this and put it out there in the multilateral fora. So we're gonna hear now about diverse perspectives on how inclusive safeguards are making these clean energy projects more viable, more scalable as well, and more equitable, which is the most important thing. We're gonna discuss as well how these frameworks, they risk investments, but also strengthen community ownership and unlock new sources of climate and development finance. Because when done right, inclusive safeguards, they do more than not only preventing harm, they create value, they create legitimacy and local ownership. So they ensure that innovation is not only viable, as I said, but equitable and sustainable. So before introducing the lineup of speakers, I just want to let and set the ground for the discussion by inviting you to think of safeguards not as checkboxes, as Peter said, but as strategies for transformation. So once strategies that can shift on how we fund, also how we design projects, and also how we implement innovation in a just and inclusive way. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the line of speakers, and after this I'm gonna kindly invite them to sit down and have the panel discussion. So I'm delighted to be joined by 4 panelists today. So first we have Mr. Bruce Dunn, Director of Safeguards Office of the ADB. Thank you, please round of applause. Thank you. Now we have Emma Marsden, Principal Safeguard Specialist of the Safeguards Office of the ADB as well. Thank you, Emma. Next, we have Mrs. Anna Lovanova from the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia. And next, from the project developer perspective, we have Ms. Moon Pradhan again from the GRIPS 2 project in Nepal. Thank you, first of all, for your availability on this topic. I want to start by some grounds on the role of inclusive safeguards in risk management. So I will ask the ADB side first, because we know that ADB has been a leader on demonstrating safeguards, that the safeguards can be catalyst, but not a constraint, and they can scale innovation. So we know that you have an updated safeguard policy statement, and you are promoting that it's not just a compliance tool, right? But also a framework that, again, strategically enable transformation in this project. So to Bruce, please, I want to ask you, from your experience of ADB, how the environmental and social framework of ADB helps shape design of these projects, ensuring both sustainability and inclusivity, and how you address with these uncertainties around community acceptance and then the longer term viability of the projects.
Okay, thanks very much, Lorena. And look, thanks so much to all of you for joining today, those that have come a long way to be at ADB for the ASEF. Really appreciate you being here, and of course UNIDO and other partners for joining this session. It's great to have a chance to talk about sort of environmental and social perspectives as we look towards an energy transition. So really appreciate the opportunity. Just one quick plug. ADB has been working over the last couple of years. I lead on the environmental and social policy side, and we've just launched this new environmental and social framework. I don't have a QR code on screen, but if you go online and just do ADB Environmental and Social Framework, it'll take you to the page. So we spent the last few years working on this, and before I go into just some of the questions there, just to let you know, so we did a lot of benchmarking and we did a lot of discussions with our clients. We spoke to many of our existing private sector clients, as well as our member countries, many of our developing member countries. We talked to civil society, local communities. We really spent a lot of time going through. And I think what we heard consistently was, while many are looking for us to have, strong environmental and social frameworks, standards, the whole policies, and make sure that it's being implemented, we were hearing consistently as well of, look, we need a common benchmark. And for many investors, I think the big challenge that they're facing is you're applying different standards, and you've got different country standards, you've got different lender standards. That makes it very, very difficult. And of course, when you apply different frameworks, it can also make it very difficult to ensure that they're actually applied properly. So we looked at this very carefully. We heard a lot of partners saying, look, from the private sector side, that they were working with the IFC performance standards, or they were working along the Equator principles. So we looked very carefully at saying, well, look, how can we align around ambitious international good practice, but at the same time ensure that that could be practical and implementable? So I hope when you have a look at this, that you will find the right sort of balance that we've got there. We do see, as you said, Lorena, if done well, we really should be looking at the value proposition. But unfortunately, what we do see in many cases is the opposite can be the challenge. And I'll just point out a couple of general examples. My colleague Emma will be talking about projects, and she might get a little bit more specific. But certainly the challenge that we see is when you are working with projects that are impacting down on local communities, that you will really not see that social license or support. You might have a great clean energy project, you might be really hitting it in terms of climate targets and renewable energy generation, but if you haven't been able to bring the local community with you, we've seen many projects where you'll have strong community opposition. That may not be obvious from the beginning. Sometimes it is, but not necessarily. It will end up basically pulling your project down. You will get an increasing number of complaints, and you will get delays, and those delays will lead to cost overruns. The opposite can be true though. If done well, if you start early, if you look at comprehensively engaging with local communities, I think you've got a much better opportunity to integrate their concerns early on. They may not be so excited about your wind project or your engagement around critical minerals. Often they are around job opportunities, but what we hear increasingly is it's about their livelihoods. It's about some of the environmental and social impacts. So if you start to engage early, you will have the opportunity to integrate those into design and actually unlock your project investment. So I think it very much goes hand in hand. We've addressed that in several ways, and we won't have time to talk about all of them now, but you were asking me about the sort of stakeholder engagement piece, so I'll emphasize there. We've put in place a series of environmental and social standards, and they're integrated. They recognize that environmental and social issues are related and that you really need to look at a range of gender, social inclusion, look at disadvantaged and vulnerable groups. That's all there. But a central piece for us was actually designing a new standard on stakeholder engagement. And that was recognizing that many projects were not working. And as we started to tease out what the issues were, it might have been about land acquisition, it might have been about noise or vibration, but underlying that was some challenge with stakeholder engagement. So we've now put this dedicated standard, and we're doing a lot of capacity development around that. And if we've got some time, I can share more on that later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I think you made the point of like ESS not only as ethical imperative, but also makes sense, right, in the project implementation phase. Like it will, when done right, again, it will just avoid any project delays, any social and environmental conflicts when implemented early in project design. So thank you for your answer. Moving forward to Emma, I wanted to ask you, Emma, that building on Bruce's points, if you have any input on how the ESS and also JESI frameworks, so inclusive frameworks, can be better integrated early in the project design, and how do you see ADB supporting countries, but also project developers on the ground to implement these ESS strategies?
Thank you. Yeah, so I work on the operations side of safeguards, so I've done a lot of different projects, including not so many of the areas that you're looking at now, but in the past, solar and wind, which at that time were demonstrations. So I think that gives a very good context for looking at your new technologies moving forward. And we often find that the engineers are very excited about their project. They've just come up with this new innovation. They want to get it on the ground as fast as possible. And they're really focused on the technical side. So it's utmost importance that at the same time, they start to think about the local context of where they're doing the project, the risks, but also the opportunities at that early stage. And I think people often think, oh, we've got to do environmental impact assessment or social impact assessment. It will come later in the process. I need the report to get my permission and so on and so forth. What I would recommend is you have environment and social specialists on your team as soon as you've come up with your concept to start to identify those high-level risks or red flags that could stop the project moving forward, but also to engage with the community, because as Bruce said, that early community engagement is really important. Many of these projects will be done in areas that aren't necessarily highly industrialized or urban, where people are used to seeing development and so on. So it's really important that they understand what the possible impacts and risks are. And of course, you're looking at new technologies. It's not something that people are familiar with. We often see, like in a road project, people are more accepting of a road project because they understand it. They understand what that's going to bring positively and negatively to them. So it's about education and bringing people along on the journey and making sure you consider those from the start. For example, we are starting to look at like some green hydrogen projects, okay? But that's very water intensive. So we need to make sure the location is right from the start. If we go and put it in a water stressed area and we don't engage with that community as well, there is a risk that they will then suffer from drought or problems which might be exacerbated by climate change. And therefore, that's going to cause social disharmony, and that could put pay to your project. We have seen many projects that were really good on paper, technically, but because of that lack of social engagement from the start, have failed to take off because there's been objections and problems. And exactly as Bruce said, once you move up the mitigation hierarchy as well, from avoid and minimize due to your location and good design at the start, mitigating and compensating becomes far more difficult to do, far more expensive, and also less efficient as a mitigation as well. Thank you.
So much, Emma, for bringing also the topic of social acceptance, but not only as a social acceptance as a compliance tool, but also involucrating all the communities into the project. And maybe expanding on this, I might ask you super quickly, when you were mentioning when things go wrong, then ADB or like on the project side, do you have a grievance mechanism system in place? How, if things go wrong, how can you stop it and offer people voices to hear their problems and their social acceptance?
Yeah, so it's part of our old policy and also a new policy that every project would have a grievance redress mechanism, both for workers and for the communities. And that's a really important tool so that the community has an avenue to come to the project and say, we're concerned about this. It doesn't necessarily need to be something that's going wrong with the project, but they just want to know more about it. They just need to know how it's working, how they're going to get benefits from the project. So having that open avenue and being open to receiving the grievances and working with the community to address them is really important. I've seen firsthand that grievances that aren't addressed well, they can escalate out of hand, and then that can affect the viability of your project. So really, really important for the social engagement to be there from the start.
Thank you, Emma, for covering that as well, grievances mechanisms. So moving forward to Anna, please, Anna Lovanova. I want to move forward now to how we measure the impact as well, beyond the compliance of the policy frameworks on ESS and Jesse. So you've developed the Green Power Corridor framework for SCAP. I was wondering if you could walk us through how the SDG-aligned metrics in this framework help to broaden the social and environmental impacts. And based on this pilot in Georgia that you were mentioning to me when accepting this, being a panelist, how can these tools be adapted for wider application for the Asia-Pacific region? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorena. I'm happy to present what was developed in ASCAP, but before that, just to step back, ASCAP, because I found out that as a panelist, I have a very different approach in our work compared to others, because we don't work directly with projects, we work with governments and on the policy level and capacity building. So from this, our framework is more on a higher level, and to it consists of three main points. First is the building blocks to structure the projects. Then it consists of principles to guide the development. And the third part is metrics, where you can basically measure against different indicators. And in our case, we developed metrics to measure against sustainable development goals. And also, this framework was taken into account when at COP29 there was presented Green Power Corridor pledge. So the basis for this pledge was our framework. So today I would like to focus on metrics piece and pilot which we did in Georgia a couple of months ago. And the idea of this metrics is that we developed an assessment tool on how to measure the project against sustainable development goals, and we took into account all 17 goals. And our metrics, it doesn't contradict with the existing frameworks. It's more complementary assessment as a very, very first step, even before you engage environment specialists or gender specialists, with the idea to have a look which stakeholders you need to engage during the development of the project. It allows also comparability with other projects in the country or outside the country, and to find out the areas for project improvement. This is the key idea of the metrics. And what we found out, it's a work in progress. So we would be happy to share it very soon. But actually, based on the pilot in Georgia, we found out key outcomes. First, when we conduct assessment and when we apply these metrics, it very much depends on country context. Because as I mentioned, we assessed against 17 development goals. And for example, some of the goals, they're just not relevant in certain countries. For example, in Georgia, second goal on zero hunger was ranked quite low. And when we went into details why, it's not because it's irrelevant, but because for them, they already reached it. So they just did not take it into assessment. So that's what currently we're working on, to adjust the metrics to specific country context and to make sure that the questionnaire is developed the way so that it helps to not only assess, but to evaluate how what the response means, that it's not relevant, but like why is it so as well. So and also for us, we saw it as a, as I said, first step to see what areas are covered. It helps to engage different stakeholders because you can conduct this assessment within different groups, including civil society, including academia, policymakers or experts. And this is important because when you engage with different groups, you have different results based on the background of people you ask questions to. And that's why our main result based on this assessment was to engage as many stakeholders as possible, to have different opinions. And then once you do that, you have a clear idea in which areas you need to work further, and then to engage, as Emma mentioned, environment specialists or gender or any other experts needed on the project. Thank you.
So much, Anna, for your answer. I guess that when measuring 17 SDGs, you've been having challenges with verification systems or with data collection. Maybe we can expand that later. I'm going to move out to another topics, from policy and from support for governments and for metrics to practice. So I'm going to ask Moon Pradhan, how did you practically integrate this ESS and GESI into the project design? And if you have a glance of the biggest challenges that you are facing now or in the future.
As I mentioned earlier in the presentation also, in GRIPS 1 project itself, we had done the GESI audit, and we were able to integrate the findings from the GESI audit in the first phase itself also to ensure that there is change in the situation of female participation in technical fields also. So utilizing the experience from GRIPS 1 project, we were able to design a plan for GRIPS 2 project, which I think also helped in procuring the finances. Another is we, as mentioned earlier, right from the beginning, we have the plan of integrating the community in environmental and social safeguarding. So having looked at the community, having done an assessment of the industry before regarding how the situation is. As I said earlier, the industry is GESI blind and also not considering environment and social safeguarding considerations at all. So we do plan to have community engagement right from the beginning. That is also the reason why we are going to have the committee itself, so that there is involvement of the partner organization, that is Lakshmi Steel, as well as the immediate area of influence, the community who live in the area, as well as other stakeholders, so that they can contribute towards the considerations that will be taken into action. Of course, we do see the challenge of the private sector themselves saying that they're more interested in profit rather than what is the social impact. But once we are able to make them understand that having the community integrated and the social impact that is going to happen with the changes that is incorporated in the industry itself, how that's going to benefit them in the long run. We see the acceptance coming in also. And we've had, as Practical Action in the past, have had experience of going in the community and utilizing the community involvement right from the beginning to ensure project being successful. So we've seen that if the community is involved in the planning phase itself, in the implementation action plan, then it is possible to have acceptance. So we do see the resistance from the private sector, as well as the notion that having environment social safeguarding or just incorporation is not going to be a hindrance, but is going to be more of profit. And we're going to do that by community involvement right from the beginning. And that's that. And we are starting that by having a steering committee right from the beginning.
Thank you, Moon, so much for this perspective on the project level implementation, and also, as you mentioned, how we ensure the private sector and also public sector understand that this is not only, as I said, compliance tools, but also changing the narrative and saying, okay, this is economically a strategy, incorporating women to your industries, male-dominated industries, making sure that the environmental safeguards are on place and not only a checkbox. It makes sense also, and it's rewarding for them. But I think to have also time for questions and answers from the audience, I think I will ask one more question to Emma and then to Bruce, whomever wants to answer this, because I wanted to have this opportunity to also ask you how can also ADB and also all the rest of MDBs provide more proactive incentives to reward these developers that do comply with these standards. How can you see that we can reward developers into embedding these inclusion measures early in the project design, or by you ask the proposals of the projects, Emma, to have already ESS measures in place, action plans? Like, I would like to know how can we promote incentives for the developers that do actually comply with these inclusive safeguards.
We could share. All right, yeah, a couple of perspectives there. So, you know, investors or clients coming to ADB for financing will come to us for a range of reasons. Sometimes it'll actually be because they want to work with us and to get support around the environmental and social standards, because that will help them build credibility in the market. For example, sometimes we might come in with an equity position and strengthening their environmental and social systems. It might allow them, in some cases we've worked with partners where they were subsequently able to float bonds in the market to raise capital, and that allowed confidence for other people to come in. It may be a very different case where they're actually wanting to come in and they want to work with us because we can bring some concessional resources. But if they have got strong systems in place already, coming with, you know, maybe a strong environmental and social assessment already done, and that looks great, that's going to get you to financial close very quickly, rather than us coming in saying, well, look, we'd love to work with you, but there are 10 things missing in your project and you don't have a baseline study for biodiversity, and this is a wind project in a migratory flyway, you know, a bird flyway, and that's going to take 2 years to get the data. You know, that's a very different proposition. So, you know, either way, you're going to have the environment and social is going to be important in that transaction.
Yeah, and just to add to what Bruce says, I think also if you have a developer who comes to you with some ideas of how they could incorporate environmental and social, not just on the compliance front, but also building in opportunities, then ADB is there to help make the links to other financing. So where there might be grants or some concessional lending, then that can be identified. And also when we're working on the sovereign side, we also prepare projects that would then be under like a PPP mechanism or something. So we can also ourselves make sure that the developers who are going to have more interest in doing this social inclusion and environmental sustainability are more likely to therefore be successful in such proposals. So I think there's plenty of opportunities, but it's looking at the ENS and the inclusion with a positive spin on it, that it can have benefits rather than just thinking of it as sheer compliance and ticking the box, as Peter said at the beginning. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Emma, for this note on positivity and opportunity. So to end up and have like 5 minutes of questions and answer, but I will have this opportunity to ask first Anna and then Moon to bring a key takeaway from the perspective of the metrics and then scalable to other regions, and then to Moon from the perspective of the future of project implementation. And then we go for questions and answers from the
Thank you, Lorena. Very quick, our takeaway was to engage as many stakeholders as possible, to have a wider overview of the project, and then from there build on areas for improvement. Thank you.
What we've seen is that when we do incorporate GESI and ESS and we talk to the private sectors, it does work. In the phase 1 also, after the GESI audit was done, our main the largest solar importers, they were able to increase the participation of women in their HR from 15% to 45%. That's a 30% increase. And they were also able to incorporate policies in their HR policy. And they are now giving period leaves, as well as they were able to give training to 20 women solar PV installers and giving them employment, which directly links to what we're trying to do in GRIPS 2, where we are going in the twin track of giving training to women participation and people from the discriminated society, as well as bringing in policies in the private sector that will be GESI positive and ESS positive, while we do green steel also.
Thank you, Mon, for these last words. So I will please ask everyone to give a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much, personally and professionally, for being here. Thank you. And now I think moving on, we can have a Q&A session. So please, you can stand up, grab the mic. I know you can, if you're shy, you can also use the WOBA app, but I'm more old school person. So I would rather listen to your voice. So please, if you have any questions from our panelists. Everyone is shy. Let me check the WOBA app.
The coffee must smell good outside, that everyone's wanting to take a break.
Exactly, I see no questions. Super. Thank you. Thank you. Breaking the ice before the coffee.
Kia ora, Mark Gibson from GNS Science in New Zealand. Quick question. I've been thinking about this a lot. We're developing all these protocols and things. The end user, for example, in the steel case, it's going to have a bit more of a green tick. How do we globally show that? That's probably my question, is that you're talking about all within the actual organisations, but how do we actually show that to the end consumers?
So the inclusion of GESI as well as ESS in one industry is just a start. In the project itself, we are not just going to be transforming the Lakshmi Steel in the one organization, but our plan is to expand the similar integration in other steel industries and maybe be able to scale up in the next phase to other industries in the country, which means that this is not just going to be a one-off intervention, but something that we're planning and hoping to be able to replicate in other industries, which would mean that it can be replicable in our plan is South and Southeast Asia, but also worldwide.
Thank you for that question, and thank you, Mon, for that answer, and for ending the session on how to scale and how to become a lighthouse project. Thank you again for your availability and for this discussion. I hope that in the coffee break we can have more. You were trying to raise the hand for another question? Oh, okay.
Okay, super. We take this question and then wrap up. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, no, just thank you for the panel discussion, very interesting. If I could also take a question, I would like to know what is the appetite from the Asian region for de-risking projects through the safeguards? Whether is it more on the voluntary aspect of the project developers and the companies, the private sector towards it, or are we seeing also a tendency of further regulation? And then, for example, as Lorena was touching up a little bit on incentives that MDBs can give, or also through the governments. Thank you.
I think it's probably a combination of all of them. Okay, so the regulations are there, but actually, with respect to some of these developments that are going to be innovative, they're not there at the moment. So it's a matter of actually the developers then taking the incentive and wanting to look at them because of the incentive from getting money from like your MDBs and so on, where we do have these social and environmental safeguard frameworks. So I think the MDBs play a key role here in pushing that. A lot of private banks also use the Equator Principles, which are aligned with these social and environment safeguard frameworks. So that's also important. So I think if the financial sector can push the importance of this, that rolls out. And then in parallel, we work with the countries to strengthen their safeguard systems to enable the other developers that may be trailing along a bit later to also comply with these as well.
Thank you. Just from the, because we work directly with the governments, and I can say from their perspective what we see, we definitely see the push from the government side, and we notice that in changes in policies and also starting from their NDCs and their ambitions for decarbonizing from the higher level, and then we see it into policies, and then I think it also drives on the lower level to the projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. With that, we wrap up. Thank you. It's amazing. We're right on time. Best lineup of speakers that I had. So thank you again. Big round of applause for all the panelists. Thank you. And I will hand over to Peter for the wrap up, and then we can take a group photo, right?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate you joining this excellent discussion today, and hopefully it starts to stimulate the conversations for the week ahead. And maybe just to say a few quick takeaways, but while that's happening, we do have a feedback form. So if you can spare like 2 minutes, it's really fast. It's literally like 6 tick box questions. It won't take long. It's really useful for us just to see how you felt this session was and how we can do